So, dear participants of Vilnius Urban Lab, we're really happy to have you here at Zoom, and also we joining your team today. And I will pass the welcome word to Dean of the Faculty of Creative Industries, Živilė. So, Živilė, are you here with us?
Good morning.
Yes, Živilė, we can hear you.
I just joined with another device. Good morning, everyone.
Hi.
I'm very glad being with you today, despite this pandemic situation, which is getting better. Despite any circumstances, you managed to do this event. So I would like to congratulate you all and to wish you to have very, very good time. Our faculty really values and seeks the cooperation with practitioners, municipalities, and this scientific and practitioners approach, when it comes together, very, very good practices gets alive. So we would like to strengthen our partnership among Baltic countries, among scientists and practitioners, and we would like to encourage all of our society to build contacts among each other and to popularize our cultural planning model, which we encourage to use to our students as well. So I would like to wish you a very good seminar, very good time, practical and useful time. And I'm sorry for some technical inconvenience. I was trying to connect with two devices and only one worked. I could see you, but unfortunately couldn't join with the video. So glad that it started, and I'm passing the word to our leader, Jekaterina.
Yeah, thank you, Živilė. So now, as you know, Vilnius Urban Lab is one of the series of labs which are arranged in the context of urban cultural planning project by Interact Baltic Sea region. And now we have presentation after presentation. We have this plenary session which is streamed in Facebook. So after this presentation, we will have discussions. We will have discussions in groups. So now I will just announce our presenters, and the first one is Agnė Gaisrė from Antakalnis City Lab. We wanted you to feel the vibes of Vilnius and also the vibe of community. Because it was the space actually where we had to meet during our physical Urban Lab meeting. So please, Agnė, tell us about managing community spaces and about Antakalnis Lab.
Hello, everybody. I will share the screen just a second. Share the screen. I have a presentation. Because it's not so easy to show here around with the computer, so I want you to see at least few pictures. So as Jekaterina presented, I am Agnė from Miesto laboratorija. We call it in Lithuania, and in English we just translated City Lab. And now a few facts about our community center. It's located in Vilnius, in Antakalnis district, in very beautiful Sapiegos Park. When we say that, everybody thinks that, oh, it's like kind of Baroque building, but no, it's an old warehouse. You can see in the picture in the corner how it used to look. And down in the picture, you see how it's looking now. So you can see a big difference, but it took us a lot of work. I wouldn't say money, just hands and a lot of work. So we started 6 local volunteers. We were volunteering in community garden, also in Sapiegos Park. And we decided that we want something more because the season for the gardening in Lithuania is very short. So we decided that we need some kind of space for gathering the community, and you can organize all kinds of events, cultural and something more. So we had an opportunity to rent an old warehouse from the municipality and started to renovate the building. One big thing that we had no money at that moment. We had no external financing, but we thought that, you know, the community will be willing to give us, and all kind of businessmen from Antakalnis will be willing to help us because it's such a brilliant idea. But no, it doesn't happen. So we had to work by ourselves to organize all kinds of events. So we were fundraising, you know, euro plus euro and plus euro. And what we did, we involved the community from the surrounding into renovating process. And that was really a good decision, because then people think that it's for them. You know, it's not that we're doing for ourselves, but we're doing for them. And people started to talk. Then we started to, you know, to collect the community around us, even when we had no space still for the community gatherings. And now we call ourselves social enterprise with 2 goals, main goals. One is strengthening and involving local community. That was from the very beginning. And we all organize all kinds of events like cultural, art, social. We also have a community cafe. That's the main, basically, financing pillar for our community center. And we also have all kinds of do-it-yourself culture workshops. And the second big goal is sustainable living and eco-innovations. When we started to renovate the building, we knew already that we don't want new things, that we want to use what people already things are already thrown away by people. And some had, you know, a little bottle of left paint. Some had old sink, some had all kind of old lamps. So we used everything what could be found around. And also we have a hydroponic garden. You can see on my back, we have now red tomatoes, lettuce, and all kind of herbs. And also we have solar panels on the roof, and we're heating the water because in our building it's only cold water. We also made gray water in our toilet. When you wash your hands, this water goes into the toilet basin, and then the second one who is coming after you, he is using this water to flush the toilet. We also have little things around, like collecting rainwater, composter inside. We're composting all our organics from the cafeteria, and we're very proud of this organic composter. So how we design arts and culture events? We are living in the district which is known as an artist and all kind of famous people from the past. So we decided that the history of our district is long and noble, and the first thing what we organized and raised money was the Christmas market in Sapiegos Park. It was an abandoned park for many years. Jekaterina knows that very well. And when it started, little by little, people were allowed to walk in the park, and it was kind of opening of the park, this Christmas market in Sapiegos Park. And we have also series of events. My neighbor is an artist. where we invite people from the neighborhoods as speakers, as singers, dancers, and it's quite popular. And also from the very beginning, we knew that we can't, organize the content all the time. We will be lack of ideas. So we wanted that locals will create the content. And now I would say maybe 70% of our events are created by locals. We wanted people from culture consumers to go to the culture creators, and that happens. We just provide space and facilities. We have speakers, we have microphones, and also we realized that you cannot just give the floor for the people and they will organize everything. No, we are assisting with management, with communication, trying to help them how it's better, because we already know our space, we know people who are coming. So trying, to do everything what would be helpful for the person. And for the result, we have really diverse program. About the do-it-yourself culture, it was especially at the beginning when we were renovating. So now we know that we have a lot of broken chairs, so we are organizing workshop, let's repair the chair, right? We were asking our local neighbors, repair specialists, come and help us. We started at the beginning repair cafe, but it didn't work. But now we are having an idea how to bring it back to life. Also, as I said, community cafe, all the cookware are brought by locals. So that's why we have all the different plates, all the different glasses and pots and everything. And we are organizing brunches for families. Why for families? Because it happened naturally. It happened naturally that our space is very safe for kids. Our backyard is without cars, so it's safe, and a big space where kids can run around. So naturally it became a family place. And we also have a project, My Neighbor is a Cook. So we invite people who wants to cook, who wants to try himself to cook for more than his family, especially maybe he wants to open a restaurant or a bar. So it's a very good space, to try something what you want to do later. And also what we are very proud of is an educational city garden. It was an abandoned space behind our building. It was an hospital area. It was a hospital district, so it was all kind of medical trash and all kind of trash from renovating buildings, bricks, blocks, whatever you can imagine. It was huge piles of everything covered with little soil on the top, and in those rubbish piles were planted trees, and very nice apple trees and cherry trees. So when we started to renovate this garden, we realized that we have to keep all these things. And we invited our also neighbor, she's a landscape architect, and she helped us to make this beautiful garden. And now we are very proud of it. Of course, it takes a lot of work to weed and to water it and everything, but still it's very nice because also community people were helping us with plants. We're sharing the plants, and also sometimes they write me and tell me, oh, I have free time, can I come and weed your garden? Of course. The more often the better, we say. So we really achieved our goal, what we wanted from the beginning, to give community the space they can use. And they are really using it. We also made a playground for kids, not ordinary playground like we see in the city centers, but we made a mud kitchen. So they are using all leaves and everything, and of course gravel from our paths. We didn't thought at the beginning while we were planning, but now all our, okay, not all, but like half of the gravel paths are in the mud kitchen. But it's okay, I'm okay with that, you know, if kids are happy and they can use our old pots and old, all kind of, you know, equipment from the kitchen while making pasta, I'm happy with that. So we showed people that you can have very little in order to create a lot. So that is really, really important to show people that you don't have to buy new things. You can use the same things, you can repurpose, you can, you know, do a lot of stuff from those things. So that's the main idea of our educational city.
Thank you so much, Agnė. I hope that we will have a chance with our partners to attend your city lab and to see alive how it works, because it's really a lovely space. So today we're speaking about implementing cultural planning, how we implement these cultural initiatives which make our neighborhoods better. And it's very important to also know what to do and what not to do when you try to work with cultural planning. So I think that we will switch to one presentation after another. If we have some time in the end of this session, we will have also possibility to answer the questions, and I invite the participants also to write the questions in Q&A section and also in chat if you want. So please address your questions to our panelists. So now I invite Trevor Davies from Metropolis and Copenhagen International Theater to share what to do and what not to do while working with cultural planning in communities. So Trevor, are you here with us?
Yeah, I hope so. Can you hear me? You should be able to hear me now.
Yes, we hear you now.
Okay,
yeah, we hear you.
Okay. Yes, it was great to start with this example, actually, because I think it covers many of the anyway the to-dos in cultural planning. But I'm just going to go through a little more theoretical, sort of, you might say, sketch of the basics of the project, and also to relate to different kinds of initiatives and the different kinds of, you might say, do's and not do's we ought to consider. So I'm going now to actually share the screen. Okay, so this should be then on, and it should say cultural planning.
Yes, we see.
As we go through this, there'll be some things I will talk about more than others, but then at least you have the PowerPoint afterwards to look at in more detail and to work with. So it's actually just not made as an you might say to accompany the speech, but also to inform later. There are also lots of pictures which some of you may or may not recognize from different events. I won't dwell on them, but they're just to lighten up the presentation, I think. So let's go on. Now, this you might say, urban cultural planning project is quite rooted in the new way of thinking of, you might say, EU's urban strategy. And there are a couple of quotes here which I just like to look at. And I think the first one is that there is an acknowledgement that we actually do need to find a new way of planning and managing our cities. And that this is not only just a participatory approach, which has been talked about for many years, but there's a real need, as it says here, for citizens to be at the source of change and also at the delivery of change, which I think is really, really important. That it actually is not just bottom up you might say, in an old-fashioned way of concept, but it actually is a redistribution of power and of authority, you might say, and inviting citizens to be active and to share responsibility for the city. I think this is also an important point. Another thing, as also was shown in the last presentation, the idea that the urban is not what the urban used to be, and definitely not is what the urban will be. So this whole understanding of actually putting the urban in an environmental environmental context is hugely important from the EU urban strategy point of view. Now, at the same time, there's a huge movement which has been very obvious in Europe the last 15 years, in which there is, many talk about it as a renegotiation of the contract, if there is, between art and society. And, you know, artists as activists, troubleshooters, solution finders, prototypers, gaming experts, and they're often taking the lead in initiative. And this is something which you might say the cultural planning ethos is of course based on. Another thing which is really important also which was highlighted just now, is how do you make, you might say, public space into cultural space, into social space. So it's not just a space between, but it actually is the hub of, you might say, a new form for participatory, democratic, you might say, city life. And this goes into some details of that, why actually urban space has become so important, which I really wouldn't look at just now. Looking at this idea of a new kind of urbanism and a new kind of, you might say, city structure, we're all aware that in a way the old-fashioned, you might say, the old-fashioned way of organizing cities is no longer perhaps so valid. And this has to do with the notion of community. In a way, we're going from thinking about space to thinking about place, which is space with an identity, and to the notion of community. So rooted in this, you might say, philosophy, and in also what one has to work on and develop, of course, in all these projects, is not just delivering projects, but actually at the same time as delivering a project, you are developing and establishing a community. And it's about the establishment of communities in the long term, which is really at the core of this cultural planning ethos. And as Charles Landry says, we are now busy trying to redefine the city as a civil framework. So it's about civil society. We cannot build or even rebuilding. We are actually, you might say, we are actually recreating the city. So this is the point of departure. Now, the idea or the concept of cultural planning means that we are looking at planning and looking at change and looking at transformation from a cultural perspective. And this is looking at a humanist approach, an integrated approach, a flexible approach, and a democratic approach. So this is the kind of process we are working on and working with. In order to do that, now there's something happened on my, is that right? Yes, we're okay. So we've decided in URBS that actually the most efficient and the most realistic way of working with this, you might say, new approach is to look at the local and the neighborhood approach. So we're advocating that this is not about, you might say, changing the city from above and changing it long term, but it's actually changing it incremental, step by step, and from a neighborhood and community perspective. Things are more manageable, it's easier to involve people, and it's also more realistic with regards to budget, resources, management, and so on. And this seems to be also the most successful area in which you might say cultural planning has been practiced in the last 10 or 20 years. And it supplements very well this idea of the event-based approach, which the European Capital of Culture programs have advocated and managed also in many countries over the last 10, 15 years. Now I'd like to look at particularly something which is perhaps putting this on the key, is that how actually processes of planning and observing the city and managing the city are changing. And if we're looking at this diagram, which has the two axes, and on the one axis, which is the horizontal axis, you can see that planning, perhaps controlled and planned, long-term planned, integrated planning, and managed from a centralist point of view. And on the other hand, you might say more incremental, more loose, and is not so planned as being self-planned. And on the on the vertical, it's from being very much infrastructure-led to being very much human and culturally led. These are the trajectories around which you can see the normal traditional planning has occupied that space which is controlled, planned, and infrastructure. And in these times, we are going into another, you might say, another set of circumstances in which cultural planning is exactly the opposite, and takes it into the human-led, takes it into the short term, and takes it in also to the temporary and the other timeframes. Now, the interesting thing is there are a lot of things within this cultural planning which are not planned, which are just happening. And looking at the kind of initiatives we are talking about, we have just had an initiative which is, you might say, urban gardening, but it could also be community participation. It could also be temporary art inventions. It could also be creative user-generated urbanism, performative architecture, makerspaces, pop-up architecture, public art. All these kind of initiatives which are coming broadly from the cultural, the environmental, and the activist sector have proliferated in the urban, you might say, in the urban reality over the last 10 to 20 years. So we are actually, you might say, translating not from one theory to another and one approach to another, but we are decentralizing and we are letting people, you might say, take their own approach to local solutions and wanting to implement and not just think or plan. Now, this movement is a broad-based, you might say, social cultural movement, which is happening whether or not we define it as cultural planning. And in fact, all of these are aspects of cultural planning. So the most important thing is to learn from these, is there's never one way of doing it. And there's never one thing which you can say, this is right or wrong. Many of these are very different in their concepts, but they all have, you might say, basic participatory, basic short-term, basic, you might say, that they're based on perhaps resources rather than finances and so on. There are commonalities, but they all are individual. And behind these projects and initiatives, there are individuals. And the one important thing, as the example we just was shown tells us, is that you have to find a point of departure which really enthuses people and really gathers people around an idea, a concept, but such that it can also be managed in the everyday, with the lady or the man saying, I'd like to come and do some weeding, which is really very nice, because what they want to say is, I want to be part of your movement. I want to be part of the social platform you're creating, and I want to share my skills and my knowledge, and I also want to learn something. So in these kind of dynamic situations, we have to think about managing our cities in a completely different way. Because if the public sector is to help and support these actions and not control them, then it also has to relate to these activities in a very different way than it relates to its normal decision-making and normal power structure and normal use of finances in a completely different way. So it's the rethinking of the relationship between, you might say, the city and the citizens, which is at the core of what we are working on and what we are doing. Now, I think, so, just passing that. So in a way, what we are saying is that if you really want to change and adapt the way of working, and I think also Charles Landry is a good quote here, because he talks very much about the creative bureaucracy. The bureaucracy has to learn to manage or to co-manage the city in a very different way. So from rebuilding to recreating our cities, from planning to actually adapting and transforming our cities, from the long-term and centrally planned to the short-term and individually initiated, from political organizations to communities and networks, from control and support to, from information to communication, from public finance and investor finance to stimulating and supporting community resources, from official responsibility and organization to self-organization, and from hierarchies to partnerships. So these are the things actually which we are trying to initiate and trying to test in all the 10 different, you might say, demonstrator projects which our URB program actually covers. How do you actually do this? And what are the keys to it working, or why doesn't it work? And central to this is the idea of the competencies we need to actually adapt to this. What kind of competencies do we need? And you might say there are competence of methodologies and processes. We are developing, you might say, an urban toolkit, and you're going to be introduced to this later on, about how perhaps these, these methodologies, processes, can be managed and are to be managed. So we are developing, you might say, the toolkit for this. But beyond that is also really key is the competence of the actors and individuals in the processes. And by that, we probably mean the intermediaries, the people who are, like ourselves, in charge of these processes, or not if in charge of them, actually are trying to support and help them along the way. And then it's also the competencies of the communities and the citizens, and seeing them as not just people to be planned for and to be provided, but also people who have resources, time and energy, and on which the long-term successes of these will completely depend. So actually making sure that they do understand what they're involved in, they have the competencies to be able to work, and they also have the right to be able to do this, and are actually encouraged and communicated about this. So it's a transfer of knowledge, it's a transfer of power, and it's also an accept of their role in the city. And thirdly, it's again, as I mentioned, also about the competencies of the local authorities, looking to how you respond to situations, how you are flexible to deal with the many different opportunities, and how you share responsibility, not just for doing your own work and for doing your own tasks, but actually for the process you are engaging in, and how you work across the borders, which has been always one of the issues with cultural planning, because it's always been positioned in the cultural department. And as we know, cities are not generated or made or controlled in the cultural department. They are shared between the finance department, between the technical and planning department, the architecture department, and the social department, and so on. So these are again necessitating involving people from these departments. So these are some of the things, and as this diagram perhaps shows, is that, why is that? As this diagram shows, we are now coming towards the implementation phase, having gone through cultural mapping, visioning, co-creation, and some strategic decisions to be made to implement this. But what is really important is the process, and that is also very, very important. That seems to be one of the issues. It's impossible to jump from one stage to the other without actually doing the stage thoroughly and without actually communicating about what one has achieved. So keeping to this process, which may take an enormous amount of time for relatively short, for relatively small projects, the processes are always long and are always complicated and are always fraught with difficulties. But the process is really key to actually the product. And one could say actually in cultural planning, perhaps it is this process which is actually transforming the community. Perhaps it is this working together of being together, it is actually transforming the community. Because in the long term, it's perhaps not just about a garden. It is about trust. It is about competence. It is about the right. It is about identity. So in fact, you are equipping, you might say, and supporting a change of consciousness and a change of approach and a change of accept as to what communities can and cannot do. So really the phases are really, really important, not just to deliver the results, but are really important to actually create the sense of, you might say, doing it on your own. And between, I think this is also really important, that it is not just about including citizens in the normal acts and the decision-making of planning, but actually transferring, you might say, the whole planning, you might say, process to the public sector or to the community sector. But it is so important to keep the communication flowing. It's so important to communicate with the citizens and with the city and with the neighbors. And it's really also important to report to stakeholders, councils and boards and keep them on board. and not to, in a way, privatize these processes which we are engaging in, but keeping them as open processes so people can be included and also come with criticism and discussion about why and what not and so on. So what we are advocating in a way is that the thing where cultural planning is perhaps different and where it has to be really taken seriously is this three-way partnership we are advocating. And this three-way partnership is adding something to the city and community partnership and linking in with arts and culture. And what we've been trying to do in this program, of course, is to find the various, you might say, the various equations and the various examples of who in the sector of arts and culture and how can this be initiated. And the examples are really many, and they are showing different, you might say, the different aspects of what needs to be done to actually make this function. And there are some key overhead. I'll only take, I think I have 3 minutes or 2 minutes left, if that's okay. One is that this aspect of partnerships and collaborations is really, really important, that it really does work. And this is not so easy, of course, because working with communities, working with artists or cultural activators, and working with cities are very, very different ways of organization. So there has to be made a common ground. And the common ground is the project. The common ground for this is the project. To find a project which everybody can relate to, link with, and has its own authority and has its own right. So the project becomes the lead in this. It builds, you might say, it builds communication, it builds presentation, it builds the economy of resources, and it builds self-organization. So the projects have to be able to deliver this for the project to work in a way. And these are, you can look at this afterwards, and these are the things we have been looking for in our projects, which you will hear about over the next couple of hours. That they are visible in the neighborhood, they are a positive response in the city to some issues. They are unique with regards to their site and place. They are open and involve and engage networks, and they build relationships. They added social, cultural, and economic value. They can be upscaled, and they can be created, and they are driven by creators, and they are actually fun. So those are the things which we've been trying to find in our programs and on our projects. And you can see examples of all these, you might say, triggers, as we call them, triggers which are creating social innovation and inviting people to be involved in social urban processes. And these are public space projects, often squares, leftover places, empty spaces and buildings which can be reused, public art projects, festivals, residencies where artists are involved, urban gardenings, memory projects, walking projects, local tours and guides, and so on, and also micro programs. So these are the kind of things which we are involved in, and we're trying to test how each of those can deliver. So I hope this has helped, you might say, uncovering some of the issues which will be at the core of, you might say, developing, but also keeping these projects alive. Because even though we have had 2.5 years to develop these projects, 2.5 years may seem a long time, but it's an incredibly short time for programs. And looking at the history of how community projects, neighborhood-driven projects are developed, we're often talking about 5, 10, 15 years. So at the core of this is our ability to transfer ideas and concepts to others and to create a platform which is self-supportive in the way. Yeah.
Thank you, Trevor.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we will be returning back to this thesis and principles during our next presentations. And also we have today with us Agnė from Visual Thinking, who is drawing and sketching our presentation. So if Agnė is with us, maybe shortly you can also show your insights about what is going on here with us. Oh, okay, yes. So just shortly, oh, yeah. It's
wow,
very concentrated, as you see.
I think I'll take that one to use next time instead of 45 slides. I think that's much better. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Agnė, do you have a slide for Antakalnis urban gardening? City Lab. Oh, yes.
Whoa.
Thank you so much. Okay, so yes, thank you, Agnė. We will distribute these materials after the conference also on Facebook. Now we have this live stream, and at last we overcame all these technical things. And now we have Justīne Panteļējeva from Riga City Council, and we are very excited to learn about Minecraft Riga. And you can find also some materials which are connected with our presenters at Facebook Urban Cultural Planning page, and also at Urban Cultural Planning site. And on site you can find Justīne's interview about Minecraft in Riga and how youth is attracted to this initiative. And also you can find on Facebook some materials concerning Trevor's initiative 100 walks in Copenhagen, which is very inspiring. So please browse, navigate the materials as well. So please, Justīne, we are passing you the floor. Hello.
Yeah, I hope I can share my screen. Yeah, it seems to be working. Thank you. My presentation will actually, I heard a lot of things what Trevor said, really resonating with our approach that we've been doing in Riga. And my responsibility with the Riga team is to kind of be a coordinating person for the Minecraft activity. Even though we are quite a few people, and I want to do a small shout out to Jānis, Dagnis, Laura, other Laura and Sandra, that also have been like invaluable for us in this process. First off, just a brief intro to Minecraft, and I know probably a lot of you might have heard about this game, but probably not played everyone. It's a game that has been open or running since 2009, so almost a decade now, and it's been super popular amongst kids and young people, as back in 2019, at least, there are almost 112 million active users per month. And why we actually are here and discussing Minecraft, it's partially due to United Nations kind of initiative, block by block, initiated with Mojang and Microsoft, that began in 2012 in idea to explore more how to use this game as a tool to use it in public space planning. And Minecraft, for those who don't know, it's you can see a bit of a picture here. It's basically a Lego type of a video game that you use blocks to build, find resources, and build resources, or like make resources, let's say. And the idea of to use Minecraft in urban planning from the UN perspective was quite simple and straightforward, to give the voice to those who don't actually participate in urban planning, especially in underdeveloped countries or like less off circumstances. By recreating the real life build-up scene into a Minecraft, it was people were able to communicate their ideas of improvements, and then through this program they actually created improvements in public space. So they asked kids what do you want to see there. They built it with their blocks, and then it was necessary a part of it to actually continue through with it and actually realize these ideas. But that's just one part, how to use Minecraft as a platform to involve and communicate and to explore things. And today I'm borrowing Trevor's words and slide basically from Copenhagen's Urban Lab, which really goes hand in hand what we're going to, for our story. But why should we connect cultural planning and Minecraft? And there are a lot of aspects how to look at it, and it's really diverse ways of how to look and to ask a question, how do you want to use this tool? You can look at it how to develop competences, not only for children, because not everyone is so well developed with the game, but also how to communicate their ideas. Also competences when we talk about the public sector and the people who are reaching out to these target groups. One other aspect is also exploring and mapping, and that's what we've been doing in cultural planning in general, but digitalizing it and involving and being able to transfer ourselves into parts of the city that we cannot access if we're doing a workshop somewhere is also kind of an interesting way how to look at it. What we've been in Riga especially looking at is the aspect of creating sense of citizenship and or developing sense of community, which is a way to connect through exploring and building in this digital space our like buildings and research history, for example. And it also it really tackles into the aspect of children and the youngsters being really this crazy energetic space resource for us to test new ideas and come up with new ideas and proposals. So our approach has been really rather simple, and we've been looking at how to help young people in Molderaia, which is one of our two local demonstration project locations, Molderaia/Daugavpils, to connect with their local cultural heritage. And we were really keen on looking how to explore, looking at the socioeconomic background of the neighborhood and looking how we can help young people learn more about their cultural history and make a connection with their own neighborhood. I think a lot of us live in their neighborhoods and don't know much about their neighborhoods probably. You know, like a house is not a home, you know, you make it with associations, you make it with like connections. And the other aspect, besides building the cultural capital, we were really interested to looking at also like side note for us has been to build a social capital between the all involved stakeholders, us as a municipality being coordinators of this project, but letting the local lead activists or lead stakeholders to take space and take creative space in carrying this activity through. And how we did it, I'll hope you see a small video. It's from our map of Riga. We firstly mapped kind of the competences that we didn't have. No one from our team really had been playing Minecraft or had been part of the Minecraft community. So it was really important for us to understand what's the project's perspective, which we kind of really were well aware of. But then there were so many competences that we didn't have. So we had to go step by step and let this be kind of an experiment for ourselves as well to look at how what knowledge we do need to understand, and especially since it's a methodology involving children and education process, we started with asking help by consulting with the Data Science Center that's been doing a lot of Minecraft activities. And then with them, we and different departments, different departments of our structures, we use this opportunity to connect with within different pillars. We connected with the education department, the IT department, to find the stakeholders that we needed in the local neighborhood. So first of all, we had to just map out the knowledge that we didn't have, that we needed to, and find our main local actor, which is teacher Sandra. And the local actor in this case is the key aspect, as she, or like her, like the actor kind of carries out the methodology and involves carries out the methodology, knows which are the main points where to access the children, or how to transfer the cultural perspective to Minecraft. And through this methodology development, which we now serve only as facilitators and let the teacher be the main creator, the process that we designed was focused on 3 parts, which also involved offline and online activities. First of all, we did mapping and researching the sites that the children could explore more. Then the second part was to rebuild the buildings. First of all, doing graphic design offline, just getting to know the building, the history behind it, and looking at designing it, how can it be transferred to block by block kind of a vision on the Minecraft. And then the third part that we're still looking at is how to transfer the offline real-life sketches onto an online one, and putting it on not only build-up structures, as you saw in the video, it's really not well developed or not detailed, to a bigger, to have a not only build-up version, but also put content and history via different kind of Minecraft tools. And then the last but not least is transferring the knowledge, which has been also quite important for this project, to transfer this approach and knowledge to Baltic Sea region, like children around Baltic Sea region, let's say, or anyone in the Baltic Sea region. And what we did, the mapping process that was led by our teacher gave us 8 buildings or 8 spots in their neighborhood that they would be developing. And there will be in the classroom 8 children who would be doing 1 children per 1 spot or location. And as you can see from the list, there's a lot of churches, but there's also music and arts school, which Sandra is working, and our stakeholder. The Daugavgrības Fortress, which is our LDP spot. And then another high school, the Daugavgrības Lighthouse, and Loch Channel Waterfront. And I'll now give a brief look in state of art where we at now. I'll show you 3 buildings that we've seen that in the process of, just to go back, like the process has been stopped due to coronavirus, as children couldn't be attending the lectures and attending the classrooms. So some children have been doing online work, offline work remotely, but we paused it to fall, when we hopefully will see everything going back to normal. So we see from one side that the children are looking at the real life pictures and exploring how the building is looking, transferring it to a paper and understanding what it means to actually see the building itself. And then the third part that we're going to look at is how to transfer that, recreate the building to full extent. As you can see that our Minecraft model is not detailed enough, so there's been kind of a lot of work to do to that. But nevertheless, not only they will be doing the build-up, but they'll be also putting historical content and looking like you can look notes or links to find out more. So it's not only about just creating building itself, but also making knowledge points there. Then there's another part you can see about Lutheran Church that's also been developing. And the last but not least is Port's Captain Berg's house. It's on the Village waterfront. You can see how it looks in real life. And this is like teacher Sandra sent us like one student has have done a great job, and also looking at detailed interior as well. So we can see that we're looking forward to putting all these detailed houses and history onto one map that can be able to be accessed via link, and everyone can join and look through these spots and find out more about their history and look around. So even though we are still in the process and we're still we're still in the process, we don't have the result yet. I can show you share with you some lessons learned so far. And one thing that has been the main focus for us is that technology is just a tool and not the goal. It's never been a goal for us just to use Minecraft. We've all really seek the what's our goal and how to connect the children with their local environment through this digital tool. The second really important part for our team has been empowering local actors. Ownership of ideas and processes matters, and that's why we've felt that our role as a municipality, we should be super aware of what we're doing and how do we communicate and what is our role. And we've been trying really hard to be the facilitator to our teacher, to give her the resources, the support that she needs to be part of idea creation. And I remember being in one of the first meetings when we discussed already about these 8 different spots, and she was talking with another teacher, and they were just like brainstorming ideas, and we were just like sitting and not like taking active part, but seeing how this has created such a creative idea gathering, and how to incorporate this Minecraft activity in the local festivities that they have each year. So municipality has to be a connecting point, empowering point, but not take the leading role in community-driven projects, as therefore they will not be sustainable. And participation always needs to be meaningful. We knew that we couldn't approach Minecraft activity as an urban improvement project, because we didn't have, this project wasn't designed for it, and we didn't have the resources or the mandate actually to promise any kind of urban improvement. So we really focused on what would be the most truthful participation path here. And last but not least, Minecraft is a great nonverbal, I would call it nonverbal way to communicate with stakeholders who rarely get to be part of design process, decision-making process of community. And we use here students or children as their main target group, but this could be extended to anyone who has problems communicating in workshops and communicating in a verbal way. And that's it for me. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Justīne. It was very inspiring, this idea to provide kids a possibility to see and to draw how they see the architecture. So it's really interesting also how our Agnė visual thinking drew this presentation. Agnė, if you're with us, maybe you can show shortly your sketch. And also, we can continue the discussion during the gamification group, which is in our seminars. So we have some drawing here. Okay, thank you, Agnė. Yeah, so also I would like to draw your attention of the panelists that you have questions and comments in question and answers section below Zoom. So there is comment for Justīne, and also there is question for Trevor, which went to the section answered questions somehow, but still people are waiting for your reaction. So please follow these comments, and thank you participants for asking the questions and commenting. And now I would like to invite our panelist from Tallinn, from Linnalabor, Maria Derloš, who is working with panel housing areas. And she will speak about citizen-led initiatives in panel housing areas in Tallinn. So please, Maria, we're waiting for you.
Hi, can you hear me well?
Yes, yes, definitely.
Okay, great. I will share my presentation. I hope you see it all. Yep.
Yes.
Great. So hello, I'm from Tallinn, Estonia. My name is Maria, and yes, I work in Estonian Urban Lab. But today I will be presenting activities that are part of another NGO that grew out of Estonian Urban Lab. I will be talking about it more in detail, but yes, this is the area I work with. This is also the area where I live. The point where we started when it was kind of a starting project of Estonian Urban Lab is to look at different neighborhood associations, community-led, organized, physical communities around Tallinn. We were mapping them. They are quite traditional, some of them dating back from 18th century. So there's a tradition of coming together and doing something for your neighborhood. Also, not only cultural of like knitting or hobby clubs, but actually making a change in the neighborhood and preserving the values of the neighborhood. For example, not building skyscrapers in wooden housing areas. So when we did the mapping in 2013, it became very evident looking at the map that you have those big black spots. And these are exactly the places where we have panel housing areas. This is environments that are very familiar to you all, I believe. So this was kind of our kind of, let's say, push to research more. So what is the reason behind this seeming lack of citizen activism? Is it because the environment? Because, you know, there's discussions that it's alienating, people are more distant in these neighborhoods and not caring and so on. Or it's passiveness of people themselves, so environment or people. We didn't look much into in terms of research or academic approach, but we started to do interventions, try to grow a network of people who were also interested in this topic from locals. So me as a local, I was project manager then, and we started the network, which grew out to be a separate NGO that I'm leading now as well, and has now been present for 5 years. So I mean, this is very, I think, common to you, these challenges of panel housing areas. Well, in our case, especially Lasnamäe, this is the name of the neighborhood, is also the second largest city in Estonia, if it would have been a separate, you know, administration. It's also an area where most of the Russian-speaking population live. So it has a lot of stigma in very different terms, in terms of nationality. It's hijacked politically sometimes in the public discussions. So there's a lot of layers. And also, I think that this is also the reason why a lot of people didn't kind of work with the neighborhood, and it seemed like too problematic. So yeah, at the same time, as local people, we saw a lot of advantages. And I think it was also the point where people started to join, that the ideas we came out with resonated with them, because they also felt fed up with a lot of stigma towards this neighborhood. So they wanted to prove otherwise. So quite in the early stages then, we developed a few messages that we started to actively propose. So one of them was that Lasnamäe is a normal living area. It's not worse or better than any other. It has its own specific values, like any place, basically, right? So to normalize the area and not to demonize it further, like the discussion before was. Also, the fact that native languages, different native languages is not a barrier. We don't have to separate Russian speakers from Estonian speakers. Often is like that way, that we have separate events for Russian speakers, Estonian speakers. We still have also a separate school system, which is another discussion. And yeah, and one of the messages that you don't have to wait for political will to make a change, which has been from a lot of people, this kind of mindset that it's not so easy to do something yourself, or they haven't realized that they have possibilities to do that, or how to do that, how to, you know, connect, what are the fundings, etc. There was a lot of lack of knowledge and connections. So our approach was has been these three first things. So changing the perception of the district. As I talked, there was a lot of stigma. Collaboration with the municipality to make some kind of actual change, because they are stakeholders of the change making, and engaging residents. So this is all different things. We can change perception without engaging people. We can do a series of, I don't know, interviews, or start to do some PR work about the district, but engaging residents is something, that is not necessarily involving the first, you know. But for us, all three have been parts of a whole approach. And important for us has been to realize that in our district, although it's large scale environment, small scale interventions work best in public spaces. Also prototyping, because we really are inventing things. We cannot just copy paste something that other community organizations have been doing in other parts of Tallinn or other parts of the world. We can have hints, but we really need to prototype, and not to, which means also small scale stuff, right? Prototyping as part of design thinking. So this has been very important. And focusing on mutual interests. Even in our network, we have very different political views, very different maybe cultural views. There's a lot of things that could just polarize us a lot, but we have decided we are not talking about the same school system. I have totally different view with my team members maybe on that, but it doesn't matter, because our goal is to make the living environment better, not to talk about politics, which of course we also do politics in sense, but we try to separate these. So this is very important part, because also in our neighborhood, a lot of people interested in integration, and let's talk about that, but people are actually fed up. They want to have a positive message that unites, not something, an old stuff that kind of just makes it hard to go further. So to understand where we kind of should be going and what to do, we had to realize quite early who are the target group. We have 120,000 people. It's large for Estonia. So we understood that actually we have to narrow it down. It might not seem very narrow at the moment, but still it's a specific kind of people. It's people who we don't have to talk about, who share our values, let's say. So it's usually educated people who have a wider sense of the world. They have already a quite open and empathetic worldview about, you know, their living environment. And usually, as we noticed, they are already active in some other fields. They have been volunteers maybe somewhere, and so they're looking for some places to be active more. So this has been our usual observation. So we decided to focus on these people where we don't have to spend a lot of time proving our values, but people who share our values and just need to be attracted maybe to our activities, and those who we can help. Most precisely about raising the awareness, that has been very important for us. So this is, in our view, the basis. Knowing information and be interested about your neighborhood is the basis to create community, to be aware where you live, to feel proud about where you live, to identify the place where you are. So we have been regularly running urban walks, quests, doing it on bikes in very different ways. And this has been very successful, I might say. This involves really well men, because there's sometimes, they're often sporty events. So if people, men are not, they're usually also harder to involve, as many of you can imagine. Women are most the target group to a lot of community activism. So this is an interesting way how to get men, actually. Life hack. Also, we have been doing cultural events, but as I said, small scale is important, but we decided to keep at least one bigger scale event, but it's more focused. For us, it has been open air cinema, and to have a tradition that people know. And we understood that this actually became a brand. So I noticed people in the park talking, oh, let's meet in the place where, you remember last year we saw this movie in the park. So people just randomly start to identify the places with this cultural event, and talking that they feel also very proud that this big movie event has been in their backyard. So, and we are showing not Hollywood movies, we're showing, movies that have been in Cannes Festival that are really in the air. So something that also brings value, running discussions together with them. So to create this kind of also environment that it's community led. So not to make it too professional, this is also something important. We have been also trying to engage people in mapping advantages and disadvantages in their area, making them into a whole analysis, presenting it to the city, and then making a certain change. This is, I believe, something that you have been all doing, but this really works, and we have been doing it as well. And making visible change. So small scale interventions that are visible are super important. When we started to talk about Lasnamäe has to be better, or you can do it yourself. So people are nodding, yes, of course, yeah, it's all great, but so what do you want to do, or where are the results? So people need tangible things. And the more you do even smaller, but tangible and visible stuff, the more people understand what you do. So even a simple stuff like coloring stairs, or making a gray environment a little bit more colorful through engagement works well. So this could, you can also say this is a small interventions of street art, participatory art, and stuff like that. Also some examples of urban furniture. So we have been just experimenting with few things where you can engage people, where you don't need a lot of knowledge. So for example, this has been the day where people could just go past, be engaged a little bit, maybe drill something or color something and then go, because it's important that people don't always have a lot of time to be engaged, but they want to be engaged. So creating flexible ways of engagement, even a little bit, works really well. It has been, for example, the same thing with this stairs on the left. So we could have been inviting a cool artist to just color the stairs, but instead we chose this very simple pattern of triangles, mark the colors, and ask people to just color at least one triangle. So maybe the result is not, aesthetically, I don't know, a wow effect, but this is collaboration in this sense. And this has been from 2014, it's still there. People are not doing graffiti on it. So something must work in this kind of approach. And the last thing I would want to talk about is community gardening, which we started 2 years ago. Some colleagues already talked about how it has also been very useful tool for engagement for them. For us, it has been so far one of the most successful things. My background is in landscape architecture and participatory planning, but I didn't even realize that community gardening will be as successful as it was. So we decided to transform one quite derelict courtyard, an old playground from a kindergarten, into flower beds, vegetable beds. So looking like this, it transformed to this, also attracting all kinds of people from the neighborhood, and also the president. So actually this, when you see the photo here in the corner where I wave with my hand, this is our president on the left, which has been a huge success. I wouldn't never realize a president will come to a community garden in Lasnamäe. It blew my mind. But anyway, why it has been so successful, in my view, sorry, I will go back. So first of all, it has offered a meaningful, long-lasting participation. if you think about it, you can do a participative art. It can be an event and it stays there. It needs management, but it doesn't need to have active management. But a garden needs tending basically weekly, at least. So it means that you have to engage people regularly throughout really long part of time. So basically you have most of the year that you need to engage, and you need to understand that, yeah, garden needs tending. So with the tending of the garden, you also tend the community. So yeah, it has been really well managed in this way that people were attracted because it's a way of sustainable lifestyle. So this, all the eco talks in the air has been attracted a lot of people. But also we saw that most of people who were attracted to community garden were actually families with small children. For them, it was important to have this environmental education part in the garden. We didn't realize it before. We thought it's more maybe a hipster stuff, but it turned out to be the opposite, actually. So elderly and families with small children have been the main target group. So those who maybe are also well, elderly, harder to reach as well. So yeah, and in our case also, we decided the community garden is not only the carrot that we talk about, but also it should be a platform for community-led cultural events. So we also, as Miesto Laboratorija said, we announced that you know, you can use this platform, you can run your events. We help with infrastructure, we will help with the management, event PR and so on. So every week on Wednesday, every week throughout 2 summers now we run smaller events. It has been fencing, you know, just drawing, henna drawings, different workshops, whatever we can think about, and whoever we knew that we could engage from the neighborhood. So we didn't pay anyone and no one paid anyone. So it has been totally a change in knowledge, in change of, you know, different stuff. So this actually is the end. Feel free to follow us in Facebook and connect. We are always glad to come to Latvia and Lithuania, and the borders are open. Have been in Kaunas doing some workshops with community garden recently, and yeah, and feel free to ask questions. I hope the presentation was clear enough. I have been skipping and yeah, bouncing on different topics.
Thank you, Maria. Yes, please keep in mind that there are some notes in the chat section, and also sometimes you get questions in Q&A. And thank you so much for these receipts, you know, plant some flowers and vegetables to attract presidents, and making it a joke, of course, but also make visible changes and build the identity of places through these activities. So I think that there are lots of receipts which are very valuable, and also we're going to discuss them and go into deep during our networking group session, because there is community gardening session, also co-design session, which is, thank you, Agnė, which are connected to your topic. Okay. Okay, so we have this visual model. Thank you, Agnė. And now we're moving further. We're moving back to Vilnius to provide you a feeling of the place. And we have a duo of Laura and Beatričė, who are in Pilaitė. It's a district in panel housing district, actually, in Vilnius. And they are going to speak about cooperative development of green spaces in Vilnius. Okay, hello. Hello, Laura and Beatričė. And also, after the presentation, we will see your garden a bit. So,
hello, everyone. Actually, it's fantastic to hear everyone presenting, because we feel that it's right on the spot exactly what we're actually doing here. And we've already been talking that, well, how we can actually also integrate Minecraft ideas in here. So maybe we can later on talk about it. So today we are actually presenting from our urban garden. It's called Idėjų, lysvė, but in English we translate it as Ideas Garden. And So shortly, what we're gonna present today. So what is actually Idea Garden, what is its context, how it is started and why, how do we sustain it, and what do we want to see in the future. So for everyone who don't really know Vilnius, we are located over here on the border of Vilnius actually. So, and Old Town City is 8 kilometers away from Pilaitė district. It's a sleeping area of around probably 40,000 inhabitants, and it is growing quite fast. We have now like an old and new district. So probably also an idea of this project is how we can decentralize the area so people can have approach to the growing space, approach to the education, approach to the activities without going to city center. Luckily, probably 10 years ago, a similar initiative has started here in Pilaitė, which is called BPART. And it is a temporary building made of shipping containers and built on municipality land with a short-term kind of lease. So we are collaborating with these people and developing our garden around it. Probably it's worth to mention that when we started the project with Beatričė, we looked at the surroundings of Pilaitė and we spotted quite a lot of places where this project could happen. As you can see in the plan here, there are a lot of kind of gaps which are indeed not well kept. It's just happening nothing there. So it's like an empty spaces. And in most cases, that would be a perfect location for such an urban garden initiative because it would be well surrounded by people who lives there. However, we decided to move it to the place next to the existing community place. So that would be easier to manage for the very beginning, to test the idea, to pilot it, to see, is it possible to attract people? Is it possible to sustain it? So how has it started and why? Myself, I've been developing similar project in Glasgow, probably started like 3 years ago. And it was an idea to develop an empty city land into vibrant community space through the community enabling and participatory activities. And today I'm very happy because it is a success. Community took over the place and I moved back to my home country where I'm continuing the similar activities with people who think alike. And that's how I found Beatričė. And why it is in Pilaitė, because I grew up here in Pilaitė and it was the most sensible place to do such project.
And maybe I'll tell about myself. So I've been studying creative placemaking practices in Vilnius during my major. So I basically interviewed many of the practitioners, Jekaterina as well. And I was interested in what works in attracting the community and what doesn't. So basically I ended up with a list of things that you should or shouldn't do to attract the people and what helps to attract them. And since then I was really interested in trying something to do myself. After you know all the theory, you've read all those like great minds, now you want to really put your fingers to the ground. So basically when I met Laura, and I was also studying in Glasgow, so I participated in some of her workshops there. Although we studied different things in different universities, we still were like Lithuanian group. So yeah, we met there and she came back and she invited me and I told her, okay, so let's meet in Miesto laboratorija in the city lab from what was presented, the first presentation. So in that place we met and I said, I think it's a perfect time for it because Vilnius is opening up for these kind of co-urbanism ideas. And yeah, we just started to develop this here.
And what is interesting that with all the knowledge gathered in Glasgow, we could now test it in a very different context. It is a very different context also because a very different bureaucracy, very different support for such a projects. So the first thing what we did was finding the best partners. And of course, the best partners is Andrus from B-Part. So he is a founder of this building behind us, which we're gonna show you in a minute. So Andrus is up for everything, for all our crazy ideas. He supports us. So that's why it's so handy for such projects. We have a storage place. If we really need, we can have electricity. We have also like a roof space and even a space where we can show the presentations in this little temporary building up there. The project itself, it's actually very new. It started only last year, and actually the first actions happened in the end of September. So this is the very, very first vegetable growing in season. However, despite the bad weather in autumn, we managed to gather some community around activities. And in October, we planted a lot of tulips and narcissus in our newly built raised beds. And this springtime, despite the quarantine, I was coming up here quite often, and I noticed all the people who were passing by, they stopped by the tulips, the children, the families, the cyclists, everyone noticed it. And that was a good sign. Also, nobody vandalized it, neither the plants, neither the beds. So we're hoping for the best for the future of this project. And as the example in Glasgow showed, and as other speakers been talking before, it's a project which requires time and trust, and you cannot evaluate the success of it from one event or two events. You need to constantly work on it. You need to be regularly here, and you build up little by little these people. And even now, during our talking here, one lady named Gene came over here and said her suggestions where we can find some wood and stuff. So it's like really through the interaction and direct being on the ground, how you can make the space working. I don't know if you can see it well from this picture here, but we're gonna show you around in a moment. So before, in 2019, I would need to mention that probably in 2002 or something, there was a similar initiative who've been trying to plant some vegetables up here. I'm not sure, I think it lasted only one season or two seasons. And probably it's also worth to mention that it is a must to have a leader of the activities. So before it kind of, how to say, before community takes it over, because you need to stimulate quite regularly. So as an example, in Glasgow, the activities were taken by people, and now it's still ongoing project. People are using it as an urban garden. But before that, if you stop it and the main initiator disappears, then the whole project dies. So it's really important to keep up it regularly. And so today we have a space signed by entrance up here, which actually we're just sitting here. And it's very important to inform the community. It's very important to have all the information available. And probably we are very lucky with this project that we get quite a good coverage in the media, in the news. We keep up quite actively in our social channels. We've been trying to reach the people by putting a physical posters in the shops and the library on the kind of important places here in the micro district. And that's how we get more publicity and people coming up here. So we also have some raised beds up here, and today we're gonna be digging 22 holes for our new fruit trees garden. So
that's the carving, because we had to prepare the sticks so people know where they need to dig the hole for the tree. So explanation.
Exactly. Probably the question is actually, how do we sustain such a project, and can actually that be a self-sustaining project? In most cases, like, we doing it voluntarily. It's totally voluntary initiative. We're doing it as a side project after our main work and other projects. However, in Vilnius, it's a very new initiatives as urban gardens, and we've been collaborating with Vilnius municipality, helping them to prepare the guidelines and for regulations, so that actually people who wants to start such a project in Vilnius can have a possibility to do that. But there is a little bit more bureaucratic issues regarding the land lease, because Vilnius municipality doesn't own the land. Most of it is a national land. So again, it's a lot of restrictions and a lot of time to start this project, and it's really needs to be supported better by the government to stimulate community for such projects. Also regarding the funding, there are no special fundings for such activities, so we need to look for the funding for cultural activities or for community activities, but there is no such a thing from environmental sector specifically for urban gardens, and we hope that in the future it will be a thing. Also, quite recently, we tried to do the crowdfunding, and it was successful. So we crowdfunded 300 euros, which was enough for us to get a water tank and to get the main materials. So that's gonna keep us going for this season. And what do we want to see in the future? We want to see that the activity is gonna happen here regularly, and that we are here as a community enablers. So actually community will appreciate the space, they feel the ownership of the space, and that actually this project will spread around in other parts of Pilaitė and Vilnius. So our next step is actually to bomb Pilaitė with sunflowers. So we have 140 sunflowers, and we're planning to plant it over here, and also in a very unexpected places around Pilaitė and probably broader Vilnius as well.
So like hack the space with the single sunflowers, and then the bunch of sunflowers gonna be here. So it's like a quest that you should find where are these sunflowers are coming from, and they will be coming from our garden. So we can start our tour. We can start from the sunflower garden.
We need to stop sharing the screen. 1 second, and we will show you around. Okay, maybe you can take this one so we can hear it. Okay, so this is the entrance garden.
Here, I don't know if you can see them, but here are
yes,
the
we
sunflowers.
see.
We just planted last weekend.
Yeah, still need to water them. Okay,
and
so go through them.
And actually,
yes,
it's we only grew them, but then there was a lady who really is passionate about sunflowers, so she just took over the whole works, and she did all the 38 herself. So tada, we entered the Ideas garden. We still have some tulips growing.
So these became the real magnet for the community to come and take pictures and to really get to know better this new initiative in the garden. Example of true local initiatives. So we have a neighbor who lives just right there in the old, like how many? 100 meters away from the garden, and he saw that we were doing something, and he said, "I love grapes, and I wanna plant some grapes. So he came here with the grapes himself, and he said he'll come it, he'll take care of them. And so we have now 4 grapes. Moving along.
Well, but it will not take very long, right, this trip, because we are, you know, our time is coming to the end. So just very shortly, maybe you can.
Yeah, so this is all created with the community. You see the different kind of beds. These are like the smaller beds with the already planted main vegetables. And these are the trees that we will build tomorrow. They're still dying here. And so we have like a backstage there. And at the end of the road, there's a water tank. So basically that's it. That's it.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much. It's really interesting to have this real life tour after all this long period of being quarantined. Thank you. Okay, so maybe Agnė will show some insights, graphic insights. Yeah, thank you, Agnė. So you have the picture of your garden now. And yeah, and we can continue. I hope that we can continue our discussion during community gardening and green zones group. So now we're moving to the next presentation by Natalia Brylovska, who is from City Culture Institute from Poland. And she will present Urban Toolkit and speak about how to do cultural planning. So please, Natalia, join us.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, hello.
Nice
Just
to see you.
To share the screen with you. Okay. Okay. So as Trevor has mentioned before, the Urban Toolkit is our tool and method of sharing what we are learning during the cultural program with other urban activists, architects, and just people who want to change something in the way that the cities in Europe and around Baltic City are being planned now. What I was saying, that we are trying to reach 3 groups with different needs, I would say. We have in mind urban activists as yourselves, urbanists and architects working as consultants for the processes, participatory processes led by municipalities and regions. And of course, we have all those officials working within the official structure of municipalities and regional bureaus dealing with revitalization processes, planning processes, and also policy making in the planning. So we believe, actually, we also had a UX, user experience workshop with representatives of those 3 groups to learn what they want, what they need in the work, and how we can answer to those needs. And activists, I hope this is right with you also, want to change something in the neighborhood. That's the basic thing. And they need inspiration, know-how, and support from other activists. So as you will see, this is the first part that we have developed in our Urban Toolkit, and it is strictly mostly devoted to the needs of local activists, where you can find those 3 things. And I hope the support and sharing will still continue. The officials, they are looking for alternative views, concept, methods of planning. This is also what Trevor said at the beginning. This is a big change in the policy making in the cities. We need to change the old ways that are insufficient. They just don't answer the needs of nowadays urban spaces. So, and the third group is urbanist architects, scholars, like Jekaterina, for example, that are like external project managers for the processes designed and led by different agencies, also official agencies, but also non-governmental organizations. And they want to have reliable tools that has been tested, that can be implemented in similar environment that they are working with, because they want to convince others that are mostly decision makers to change the way of doing things in the planning department. So they need the successful stories and the reliable direct tools that can be implemented easily. And how we build the, because our toolkit is an ongoing process and it will be still developed. So as I said, we started with a user experience workshop to define what the urban toolkit should be and how it can be used in the everyday practices of all those three groups that we are trying to help. And what we, how we build it from our experience is sharing case studies that we have done or we have met in our own cities and countries. And also our own experience in the process of urban cultural planning with all our local demonstrator projects. So this is still building up. And if you are ever wanting to share your experience, your know-how, your case studies, it is still open. You can contribute it. I will show you the contact on the website. And the most important thing is to make all the knowledge that we have accessible, interesting, and applicable to those who are looking for help. And I will show you how we thought it would be the best. So now we are switching to my other screen, which would be here. Can you see now the Urban Toolkit website?
We see your presentation, Natalia.
My presentation. Okay, so yes. I think I need to change it
the program.
Here. Okay, and now? Okay, thank you. So this is the landing page. We have used the pictures from actual case studies that are included in the Urban Toolkit. We also are working for the on a special. I'm going to do it like that. For a special part of it of the toolkit that would be designed for people working in municipalities, for municipalities, to see how we can help them. This is where you can contact us. This is where I said that you could contact me directly if you want to make any kind of contribution or comments to the Urban Toolkit. You can find here some basic information about our program, what cultural planning program is about. Here you can find one of our case studies from Gdańsk, coal market, that was also a participatory project about urban space in the city, old city center. And you will find some other information. For more, you also can visit the cultural planning website. And about Urban Toolkit, you can find here the information what you will find here when it will be definitely ready and ready to use and build in the whole image that we are trying to reach. As I mentioned here, you can find who could benefit from the knowledge that we have here. This is the place that we are working now to develop the place. It is not now visible for you, but we are developing the whole new department of the website. But for now, you can find here the basic information about what cultural planning is about, what can you do with it, what are the basic steps, as Trevor have mentioned, and all those steps will have more information about certain tools and methods that are using in every phase of the process. Okay, so now the most developed place of the Urban Toolkit are the case studies. You can reach it from here or from the main page, that as I showed you before. And this is the way that we thought could affect in having reliable and adequate, suitable to your needs case studies. So basically, you can choose from a number of case studies that are more similar to your situation. If you are working with, I don't know, senior residents or youth or adults, or is the place a historical district or residential, or are you working, as you have earlier said, with the green areas? You can also have some more choices here. Is it a downtown? Is it a municipality as a whole? How large it is? Is it a public place or is it a private place? Or the situation of the ownership is really mixed, which is in Poland very often the case. Are you as an organization informal or informal? How long do you have to do your project? Because it really can take from months to years. As you can see, we also have some ongoing case studies that are more than 10 years long going on in the same district. And at the last point, you can check what kind of issues and challenges you have to deal with, and if somebody else have already deal with it with the case study project. So you can check those, and if we have any more, then we can then we will just add more issues to choose. Okay, so I will just choose the ecological awareness, and I will show you how the study is. Okay, so these two are the ecologically awareness building case studies that we have, and I will choose phytoremediation from Riga. And as you can see, this part says you the short data about where it was done, what kind of the space has it dealt with, how many inhabitants we are dealing with, the size, everything, and who has organized the project. Here you have a short introduction of what it is actually about, and the phytoremediation is about using plants to clean up the soil and water. Here you can find some pictures, and if you move to the right, as you can see, it took 7 years, but it is a reoccurring event that every event has 2 hours ongoing work with the local community, but the preparation, of course, is much longer. Okay, here you can find why the authors choose this method. I'm just gonna skip it. Oh, there's something here that shouldn't be. Okay. Sorry, I still think that there's a technical issue with the website. I will report that. So here should be the part when you can see the tools and methods, step by step, what has been done. In the basic steps that you could implement it in your area, your neighborhood, by doing so. Here you have the place for who it has been done, what kind of participants we have, and here there's the experience of what have worked out and what has not, what you have to look out for, what kind of problems and issues they can be during the process. So you could prepare and avoid maybe some mistakes and advice from and direct advice from the authors of the project. So this is basically how it works. Please excuse me for the technical issues. It is still in a development stage, and I hope we will deal with it in a really short time. And we, as I said, we are now working on the tools and methods part, where there will be similar way to choose the tools and methods that will be, as I have just presented to you, that will be most adequate to the situation that you are with, to the places and people that you are working with. Okay, and here's the contact page. So if you have any kind of ideas or any kind of contribution you would like to make, or any remarks on the toolkit, please contact me here. This is my direct email, and I will try to make it happen.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Natalia. Thank you so much. So all of you participants and panelists, of course, those who haven't yet contributed to this urban toolkit are very welcome to do that. And I think, Natalia, if you allow, we will circulate the link to the profile for you people to fill it and to contribute to these cases. So we're waiting for Tallinn, of course, and for Estonian partners as well. And also for those organizations and activists who just joined us for this session. And please feel to spread it in the Baltic Sea region, because we need to build this toolkit for all of us. So thank you so much, Natalia. And here we see.
So I'm just sending the link to the Urban Toolkit in the Zoom webinar chat, so you can use it.
Great.
Oh, no, just send it.
Yes, and also a short announcement. Now we are going to have a break for 40 minutes, and then we are gathering at the meeting rooms. And Julius has already dropped the link to the meeting rooms to the chat. And also you have this link in your letters, your emails, which I sent to you for several times. So it's the second link. So when we follow this link, we will be divided to small groups, to the discussion groups, which you choose, all of you. And after that session, we come back again to this webinar. So that's how it will be working. So thank you so much, and see you in 40 minutes. And yeah, maybe there is a possibility also to raise hand and to say something important if you didn't put it to the chat and Q&A. But I think that we're already out of time, so we can move to the break. Yeah, so thank you so much for the panelists and for you participants. So we have at this moment around 100 participants here, plus on Facebook stream. So see you in 40 minutes, so according to the project. 1:30. Yes, let's. Yeah, it's 1:40, but 1:30 it's best to start at 1:30, 1:35, just to start gathering. Right, so okay. Yeah, and we start the discussions at 1:40 Vilnius and Helsinki time, and for others it's 1 hour earlier. Okay, so thank you. See you.